Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. We've sorted out the technical issue there, and Alhamdulillah, we are now joined by Brother Malik Arafat to pay tribute to the legendary marhoom Omaruddin Don Mattera. Assalamu alaikum to you, Malik. Welcome to the program. Nice to have you on air. I also understand. Okay, and there's another guest standing by as well, and that's you, Lebon Mabasa. Welcome. Okay, we're not hearing Lebon Mabasa, but Malik, you knew the great brother Don Mattera. You obviously want to pay tribute to him. It is a sad day in our lives. We've lost a giant of a man in our community. How do you remember him?
Mashallah, he was an amazing man. I remember he was a young lad, a wannabe in writing, in media, and arts. And I first met him at Scotterville Publishers, very early on in my young days. And he was with some giants, writers there, etc. And over time I got to know him more when I saw him perform his poetry. And when I met him as a Muslim, initially I was not even aware that he was a Muslim. So Rodon was amazing in many ways, I must say. Probably because of who he was in terms of his parentage. So you never know whether Bradon was an African, a man from Kasi in the townships, whether he was a guy from Eldos, a colored guy, because he was able to mix with everybody else and was diverse in his understanding of people and issues of society. And as a result, Bradon was anything that he wanted him to be. He was so easy and accessible to everybody because of who he was, really.
Okay, I understand that Mabasa Libon is on the phone. He's also going to talk to us. It's going to be a three-way conversation. Let's hear his thoughts on this giant of a man. Libon Mabasa, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the program.
Morning.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I wouldn't even describe him as a giant, because the word giant will fall far too short to define or describe the man. He was a colossus, something huge, something he was able to hit you by his presence. You would feel that you are in front of somebody who is so kind, but who is equally so important. I knew Bradon from 1974 when I was a student at the then University of the North, Cape Town. Like I said yesterday, he was part of the people who had come to university to recite poetry and participate in the African art activities that were taking place on campus. And Bradon read a poem about the Langlaagte train disaster, and I think the train disaster took place around about 1972. But the feeling that he showed, the interpretation that he brought, the power, compassion and compunction that he displayed, he just literally changed our lives. And in later years, when we became quite close, when he would tell me how he came to be recruited into the Black Consciousness movement and how he was able to transverse the position of those who wanted to see him just as a colored person and those who wanted to see him as an African, and he was able to work in these communities when there was nobody, there has never been anybody as popular as Bradon at Regina Mundi on all our 16 commemorations when you call the name of Radon or Zinga, the hall always goes crazy. And you would read, see, and spend, and you will urge God to bless all the children, but more the black children who have lost everything. An absolutely wonderful man. He had written 2 poems in one of his books dedicated to me. And like I said yesterday, that he had told anybody to listen that should I die, please, I want you to go and invite or ask Libon to come and speak at my funeral. And it has been an honor to get that chance to do so.
That's absolutely amazing. Malik, what would you like to share with us? You originally didn't know that he had embraced Islam. Did that kind of make a difference in your interactions with him?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Undoubtedly, that undoubtedly warmed your heart because you were talking now with a Muslim brother.
Yes, certainly. I mean, not only that, but it was because of his stature that he was a man who was loved and liked by everybody. And that he was able to, he gave us that example of how it is that as young African Muslims, we can relate with the struggle, that we can relate with our people, that we can actually go above color and all of that, because these were the times of apartheid, you must remember. So, that way, the way he carried himself in the midst of the difficulties of apartheid showed us that, in fact, we can also rise to the occasion and do the same. And he carried that aura even post-apartheid into the new democracy. And the powerful ways in which he used the word of mouth in terms of his poetry and also his how he wrote continued well up to his last moments of his life. And so, here is a man who has the capacity to reach out to everybody, yet he had embraced black consciousness, he had embraced Pan-Africanism, and he was a Muslim. And, he was able to wear all these hats all at once in a marvelous way, in such a way that whoever interacted with him loved him for who he was, because deep down he was an amazing human being. He had huge qualities of love, compassion. He loved children, he loved people, he loved everybody. And his struggle was not about hate. His struggle was about us rising above all these minor differences that we have amongst ourselves. And so we've learned a lot from him in that way, I must say.
I think that in this current day and age here in South Africa, we need hundreds of Don Matteras to bring these important messages to our very fractured nation and our children who seem to have lost their path. Would you agree with me on that matter? And what is the one thing that would stand out for you that you'll take with you forever about your memory on Don Mattera? I pose this question to both of you, Libon, and to Malik. So, Malik, you can go first. You can respond, and then I'll move over to Libon.
Well, certainly. I mean, we are living difficult times now, where a lot of people have become despondent of what's happening around us. And we need more and more of him. For me, he was the Malcolm X combined with your Martin Luther in our times. He was an epitome of what it is to stand up in the face of difficulty in a way of grace, being graceful in it. And we need more of that. We need people who are more compassionate, who are easy, who are forthcoming, who've got love for the people and do things for the people.
Thank you, Libon. Over to you.
I think the most important thing is that he did bring a lot of young people to Islam. But to him, Islam was not a religion. It was a way of life. It was a way of showing more compassion, not only to your fellow human being, but able to speak to a greater power than yourself. And I think in Don, we saw the reality that indeed it takes a lot of human feeling to be a human being. You are not a human being because you walk on 2 feet. You are not a human being because you speak very well, that you eat food, but there is that element that should make you a human being. And I think that was embodied in Bradon Mattera, in the way in which he lived, in the way in which he practiced his faith, in the way in which he interfaced with all people from different walks of life. He knew how to engage with young people. He knew how to engage with elderly people. He knew how to engage with people who live in the streets, the gangs, the drug addicts. Bradon knew how to reach those people. And indeed, if we say it takes a lot of human feeling to be a human being, we are referring to a person like Mattera.
Incredibly well said. Thank you indeed, Lebon Mabasa, and many thanks to you as well, Brother Malik Arafat, sharing your thoughts on this amazing person who has passed away yesterday. Brother Don Mattera, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him the highest stages in Jannah. Thank you for your time today to share your thoughts on this amazing person. May his legacy live long and touch many, many lives going forward. Go well. Salaamu alaikum to you both, and thank you for your time. It is exactly 6 after 10 o'clock. Time for me to wrap up, indeed. Malik, you wanted to wrap up?
Mashallah, no, I'm very thankful that we had a man like him in our midst.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah for that. And that's where we leave it till tomorrow at the same time as always. It is Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Ali.
Yeah, so I think the main source of inspiration from Bradon is that he came from the same community that I come from. I also grew up in UK. So the stories that we were told as young people and the interactions that we had with him as young people was always inspiring. His particular love for children was something that really stuck with me. I remember an engagement that we were at that was celebrating him and giving him a Lifetime Achievement Award, where he reminded all the speakers that in all their speeches that they gave, that it was really very elaborate event, that none of them mentioned, the starving children in South Africa. That was something that he was very passionate about, and that really stuck with me. So he is someone that stood tall in our history during the apartheid struggle, during the struggle for freedom in Palestine. He always stood at the forefront of that struggle, and as a Palestinian activist myself, I as well take inspiration from him in that sense. So there's many aspects of his life that I really draw inspiration from in my activism. But yeah, we have really lost a giant in our community, in our society as South Africans. But his words live on through his poetry and the messages that he has for us. Thanks.